service. I think it's worth going for. And then I think that was it, unless you have a question on the guide cards. I think we're good there.
Okay. I think, again, expressing our concern is that to make sure that everything is compatible and it's all going to work and it's all going to work together, and the service that we get on the backside of this is something that we don't run into like what we're running into right now.
Correct. Yeah.
So
I did most of my research on, well, compatibility looks great, but that service is a big deal.
It is, and
these guys seem like, so far and everything else that they do, pretty good service. Really good service.
well, and I've had quite a bit of experience with Digicom from way back in the day when we first started with the 800 radio stuff, and they've always been pretty good with their support.
okay.
I really have no complaints there.
Okay, so then I will move right down the line. And
Excuse me, I'm a little coughing today because of being outside earlier for a fire that we had earlier. Again, my name is Eric Simmons. I think pretty much most of you I know over the years. I've lived here all my life. Part of Dolores Fire. I sat on the Dispatch Accountability Committee with Mike Zion, Chief. So I've been brought into a lot of this information. Was asked to kind of look into a few things. My background, just so you know, I'm a communications technician and an IT manager. I deal with radio stuff and IT all the time on federal and national disasters and incidents. So I do deal with a lot of Motorola. Motorola is the big company in all of this. There's a saying at the state level, and much of my friends, is you can buy better, but you can't pay more. So when you start dealing with Motorola, you're stuck with them for the rest of your life. That's the way our technology is, where it's headed, the monopoly, the systems involved, everything there. So when I was contacted to kind of help out, I guess based on some questions that you guys had, I did a little homework. I sat down and talked with Shay, IT manager for City of Cortez. I talked with Vern Knuckles, Lori, to kind of get a background because I hadn't been fully invested into what has been happening. I did work as a Cortez dispatcher 20 years ago, but the technology's changed. The technology from 20 years ago, if you go back 25 years ago, technology was good for 10 years. You go back 15, it was good for 5 years. Now we're lucky enough if we can get 3 to 5 years out of technology. It's how it changes. Expect it. It's going to get worse. You buy something today, it's outdated tomorrow. With Motorola, you always want to go with the manufactured recommendation. So Digicom has a manufactured recommendation for the Eventide system.
Correct.
They support it, sponsor it. If it doesn't work, the liability is on Motorola and them, Digicom. I got a little bit of background on the RevCore system that was purchased 2020.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't think there was enough background in the decision making. Shay with the City of Cortez recommended it. Others didn't recommend it due to cost or other decisions at the time that I'm not aware of. When you make a decision, most decisions are based on lowest bid. And as government entities, I work for the feds, it screws us in the end because it's not maybe the best choice, it's the cheapest choice. So when you look at the two...
That's what got us to this point right here with this.
So I'm going to offer, since my time as Cortez dispatcher, I've moved through the federal system and the state system. I work at the state level dealing with a lot of IT and tech, and I would recommend that any decision that you guys see with this dispatch center, you always follow Motorola's recommendations or technical specs, manufacturer recommendations. I don't think the RevCore system was Motorola manufacturer recommendation. So it probably, wasn't a good decision back in the day because it wasn't supported by Motorola. From what I could find out is it wasn't Digicom didn't have any word in that purchase.
That's correct.
That's what I found out. So anytime that you look into technology, go with manufacturer recommendation. In this case, Digicom is the only Motorola company in our area. We're stuck with them unless you want to spend more money and go to another company that's further away. But as far as I know, Digicom has done really well in all the work that they've done. They've supported everything other than just kind of their high costs. There's always stick with Motorola. So the Eventide system is supported by Motorola. Shay's done his homework in, you know, the background in the interfaces and the technology. The only thing I know that I noted in here is that he wants it to support Linux, which is
Yes.
more of a security reason,
That is correct.
because Windows and everything else, it's done. The only other note that I had mentioned, I'll ask Jim on that one, was
Was it the proxy server?
I think that was part of it too.
That was gonna be my question to Shay is,
On the Intel?
yeah, are they gonna buy the proxy server? You know what a proxy server is? It's just, essentially, it's an intermediate between your outside world, your inside world. It sits in the middle. It's not connected to either or system. It's kind of just like a transport. So as traffic comes in through a proxy server, and because it's not connected to your internal network, it can't be hacked through, because it just sits there on its own, and then it sends the traffic the right direction. It's a very, and for what little the proxy server cost, I absolutely recommend it.
And
have-
everybody's gonna have their different IT recommendations.
Right.
City of Cortez is gonna do one thing, everybody else is gonna recommend another. So that's gonna be a difficult situation because you're following basically the ownership of the 911 center. You know, City of Cortez is responsible for handling all the technology which is internal to that dispatch center. So you're gonna kind of to go with their recommendations and what Shay is trained on and qualified on to deal with. If he was to leave, they'd have to hire somebody else to deal with the Linux system or other stuff. Not everybody is trained in Linux,
That's true.
but yet Linux is proven in the IT world to be more secure.
Oh, I would have done Linux.
Yeah, so that's the only thing that would catch me is, do you truly want a Linux system that only certain people can deal with? Or do you want something that would be Microsoft that everybody can deal with?
Well, right now, even if Shay were to leave tomorrow, we have a backup person that could probably function within that system pretty quickly.
And I'm not against the Linux,
Right.
that'd be the way, but when you look at technology, is you want something that makes sure that everybody can deal with across multiple backgrounds. Not just one person in the office can deal with this. You want to have multiple training, multiple people that know it. And being, I guess the big thing with this RFP is it was put together by Digicom. Their logo's at the top. They own the project. You know, if you grant it to them, if they mess up or the technology doesn't work out or so, it's on them versus kind of what happened before with the purchase of the previous system. So anything that Digicom recommends or does, my personal opinion is always follow along with it.
Okay, so that's the logger.
That's the logger, yes.
So what about the phone system, the Vesta phone system?
So I was only
Anything-
given information on the logger.
Okay,
I know a few things about the phone system, but again, is the phone system recommended by Motorola?
Yeah,
and
guys.
it's really, it's from what I read and what they were telling us, is this is just an upgrade because the system they have is basically 15 years old.
Correct.
And that's concerning to me, like you just said.
I think you were
20
very
years
lucky
ago?
at getting 15
Right.
years out of that.
But in today's world, it definitely needs to be, it should be upgraded.
With the changing in 911, you have the CAD interfaces, you have text messaging, you have
The Motorola consoles.
the consoles. Just a brief thing, we're looking at, in future technology, we're looking into some automated dispatching functionality, which needs to tie into Motorola and tie into CAD And all of that is stuff that it's looking. So you always want to have everything that cross-pollinates, I guess, in dispatch will work with everything else. That's the technician's difficulty, though, is trying to work with the vendors to make sure that that happens. So when you have Shay that's doing the background work with the engineers to make sure it works, there's a lot of things to have to cover, a lot of background things. Does it work with CAD, the eForce system? Does it work with the consoles? If it doesn't, Motorola needs to either come up with a solution for it or one of the vendors needs to. So it's a big headache.
Okay,
The phone system is an expensive item, and the budget doesn't always allow for even the more expensive item beyond that. So you have to work within your budget. But every phone system that you buy is going to have a flaw, or it's going to have its positives. So,
okay. All right, Doug, you're next.
Yeah, and along those lines, what I would overarching say is just that, what are other jurisdictions like us doing so that we're not reinventing the wheel here? And it sounds like some other areas are using a similar Vesta phone system, Vesta map system. It sounds like the Montrose, the Emergency Telephone Service Authority is using that similar system, and eForce. So to me, that makes me feel, pretty good in that aspect. To use another car analogy, just in trying to get straight answers from some of these folks for real questions, it's almost like dealing with a car salesman. Either you're dealing with the salesman or you're walking back and you're actually talking to the technician. So finally, when I said, in order to recommend this, I need to, more answers, that if you say you need more answers to make the sale, they'll set you up with the right people immediately. And so I did have a phone call with a few folks from the Motorola team on Friday talking about the mapping system. They had their GIS specialist online there, did feel good about his answers. As far as the capabilities of the map system, which is really my only expertise here, there's really not a lot of change from what there's not a lot of additional capabilities other than what they have right now, other than the technology and the engine that runs it all is upgraded significantly. So, one downside, and when I asked a very technical question to them, they said they would have to get back to the contractor because Motorola doesn't build this. They have software vendors that create the mapping component. So it's a whole series of the resellers and vendors and salespeople that you have to wade through. Nonetheless, this Geocom company out of Minneapolis, the one thing that I'm not crazy about, but it doesn't sound like we have a choice, is that in order to do data updates, we have to send our data packages to this Geocom company that will then apply over the cloud back to the individual workstations. So the process that we have in place right now is I generate new data every night. It's available on a web server. Lori could grab it every morning and apply it to the workstations every morning. We're now dealing with a third-party vendor. We don't have a choice. And when you're talking about this whole phone system, they only have a couple of mapping options, and this is the one you go with. So it is the way it is. Nothing new and fancy. It's standard old. From what I understand to be E911, it's not even close to next-gen 911. I hope when we're talking about this in another 5 years, they have a lot more impressive of a solution for next-gen 911 because, the upgrades that they're talking about right now for the mapping system over the past 15 years are just not very impressive. It will show the location. It will take our data. But the way that, from what I understand, the way the dispatchers work right now is they pull up When a phone call comes in, it will plot that on their system, on their map. They'll also take and they'll copy that address or latitude and longitude, and then they'll plop it in from what I understand is in the old county web map that everybody uses, because that gives them more information than the mapping component of this 911 system. So,
But it's following, going back to what Eric said, it's following the recommendation of the entire system working together,
Yes.
yeah,
correct?
yeah.
Motorola recommends go
So
with
in
it.
other words, the guide card system that we have already approved with the Eventide and the Vesta.
Yeah, so it's
all work.
it's a necessary upgrade. We will support it. We can support it. I was hoping for some more bells and whistles and bringing us into the modern era where the dispatchers wouldn't have to lean on our county web map, and it would quicken the process because they could get the information better, quicker, I think is the goal. But that's not the case. I guess, my other just thing that I would say is that, when you're dealing with software, hardware, or database projects like this, is that you can't just sign the purchase order and forget about the implementation. There needs to be oversight on the implementation side as well, because that can really take a project and make it not all the, T's crossed and I's dotted.
So it could stop the project.
It can make for a project that, is not completed. I mean, if you think about construction, you have a walk-through inspection, you make sure that everything's done, you make sure that there's no water leaks, that the roof is good. And so I would encourage the accountability board, or whoever it is, or Jim, or so forth, to kind of do that, to make sure that every aspect of the integration implementation is completed as expected, because that's what really completes the project.
I got a question. How does Rapid SOS involve itself with GIS plotting versus what we're doing now?
From what I gather, that's the cell phone plotting part of the map.
Correct.
So that's the modular component that will not just take, because of course our data will plot house addresses, street addresses, and so forth, location names, place names, but that'll just take the cell phone data, plug it in, and plop it.
There is a new component, though, to this. What Jim just said is the new generation of iPhones are coming out with an SOS feature that communicate with satellite. That's another can of worms of getting that data back to E911. Right now, when you push that button on a InReach Garmin or some of these other items, all of those calls go to a call center outside of Longmont.
Yes.
What's the company name?
I can see it too.
And then those companies are supposed to transmit the information then to a number at the they can't call 911 in Longmont to reach here, have to transfer to numbers. That cell phone now transmits through satellite and will have to come into a mapping program somewhere. So you've got another mode of technology that's going to change in another 3 to 5 years.
That's free for now, Rapid SOS, but someone's gonna start charging. I was just curious how that links up, because two dispatch PSAPs that I called, they really like it. They said it's much better than their anti-alley crap that they've had,
Yeah.
like Southern Ute and Los Alamos. Los Animas, yeah.
So what I'm hearing from all four of you is that we are following the manufacturer's recommendations of Digicom's proposal for the phone system, the logger, and the guide card system.
Yes, sir.
They're all compatible and they all work together so that we don't have this situation that we're presented with that we currently have.
Now, you'll have little hiccups along the way.
Sure.
As you call the end user, when myself, Dolores Fire, Cortez Fire start using the CAD interface, things will pop up. GIS then has to come up with a solution to fix it, but something's not going to work. So again, Motorola will have to come up to the solution to solve that problem. Or Motorola's vendor, Digicom, they'll have to reach out. Keeping it within Motorola and Digicom prevents, I think, another problem that you had with this extra recorder that was not within the manufactured specs.
He's correct. I will say the one thing I did feel okay about though was that they were very clear on the integration with eForce and that it was a recommended CAD interface. So since we already have that, if it's already recommended that it works, maybe less hiccups than we're used to getting, because now we're not going, oh, well, we have this CAD interface, but it's not on your recommended, so now we got to get with them and build an integration, and we shouldn't have
So,
that.
Eric, something that you said that kind of resonates with me is that this system now, if we get 3 to 5 years out of it,
Which part?
the phone system. Because we've gotten 15 years out of the system that we have currently.
I think this is an upgrade to the current
It is.
system that's in place.
Yep.
Is that decision being made on the basis of budget? Is it because it's cheaper to just upgrade the current one, or to look for another system that would be better or
From
work
what
with
was
it?
presented to us, it is by far less to upgrade it
Mm-hmm.
than to change the entire system,
$200,000.
is what was presented.
Have they said
to
how
us.
long the upgrade would be expected to last?
Well, if you're telling me that the best I can look at is
3 to
5
5.
years, 3 to 5 years, I mean, we're gonna be, it gives us time to plan, but I'm not sure that we don't have a
E911
very good
is
system.
always changing again. We've got now this new feature with the iPhones that you can push that, and it has to come up and pop up to a screen in dispatch to pinpoint the location and dispatch all the resources. That's an upgrade that'll have to occur over time.
Sure.
The more technology that we interface with in our daily lives changes everything in line of that. Just over, I'll speak quickly on communications, like the Dolores repeater, our main channel VHF up on top of the hill. 50 years ago, that technology would last 25 years. It was upgraded. It would last 10 years after that. You do another upgrade or change out. When we went narrow banding, it probably lasted about another 12 to 15 years. Now it's due for another upgrade here in the next couple years. And after that, with digital and everything else, just that time frame of technology keeps dying off as the vendors come up with a way to make you buy more stuff to keep it going.
What's-
Well, I do know that SUPD, 13 years they were on the old system, and they decided just to upgrade to that new 911, and Los Animas did the exact same thing. They were like 11 years, and they said it's time because of this technology. I would say we have to do it again another 5. I don't know.
You're lucky if you could get 10 years.
And
I mean,
that's
there's,
kind of what I'm thinking, but 5 years gives us enough time to plan
There
for
it is, exactly right.
budgetary purposes moving forward.
That is
you
correct.
have something?
That's not-
We would hope.
Yeah, status of that tower,
It's back up and running.
okay. Repeater age, how old is it?
Undetermined at this point. I was told that it was purchased brand new, but it must have been purchased used at the time. I need more information
Okay,
to look into it. I'm looking at some proposals and stuff to present to the accountability committee to come to you guys, but it's gonna be a little while. But the system's up and running.
okay. I mean, you made mention of the hut being dilapidated and the generator being really old.
Everything has its lifespan. And with the Menifee, just going back real quick with the Menifee site, replacing the batteries and stuff, again, you've got age and stuff that's coming into all of this equipment. And it's gonna require more maintenance and stuff in the future to keep it up and running. Again, that's the same thing with IT. We replace servers, we replace computers in the office. The computers you're using, one may break tomorrow and they'll have to replace it. You may get 5 years out of it, you may get 3 years out of it.
Well, if we have at least a 5-year plan, we have at least with this
I
upgrade.
think you could
hopefully
safely count on a 5-year.
5 years that we can look at something different. Okay. That's all the I don't have
I
anything.
don't have anything else.
So I have one more question. Maybe it's a little bit different from what we've been talking about, but the rev cord system, why didn't it work? Was it
Didn't it work?
yeah, was it an issue with
It-
the rev cord system? Was
It
it
was
rev
mostly-
cord failing to perform, or was it a mistake in terms
Yeah.
of what we got? Why didn't it work? And
Both.
why can't it work now?
Yeah, I mean, it was both, and it's hard to get straight answers from anyone regarding this situation. My gut tells me, and this is only me from experience, is that it wasn't researched as thoroughly as it should have been when they went with it, and not knowing the ramifications down the road, how it integrates with the current system. I think they were in a situation where they just needed to get something and they just went with whatever they could find. That's kind of the feeling I get from it. You know, there was, then it's also a situation when the Eventide came, or the rev cord came out, and I'm not sure everybody understood all the issues with it either. I think that it was just bad technology right out of the box, and it never got addressed. And so they clunked along with it the best they could, and nobody's owning it at all. No, I can't find a single soul that's gonna own this one, rather than just go, you know, in this case, for me, if the city of Cortez, if it was them that made this decision, they should just own it. Hey, we made this decision, it didn't work, we made a mistake.
It wasn't
let's
made by
move
the
on.
city of
But I
Cortez.
don't know, I'm just
It
saying,
was
whoever.
made by the E911 board.
They just need to own the mistake and we move on, because we can sit here and hash about the system. The bottom line is it doesn't work. And I don't know how we deal with it moving forward, other than we hold Digicom responsible for making sure that the support on this it stays up.
Currently,
The
if
new
we
one.
go with it, right, the new one.
I think why this is
Ian was all-
why this is an important question from a legal standpoint is the system didn't work. And if it didn't work and it doesn't work because of RevCord, then RevCord should be held accountable. And if it doesn't work because of a bad decision that was made either by this board or the city or anybody else, then obviously there's no legal claim against RevCord. And so I think that's an important thing to parse out and to sort out as we move forward, even if you do get this new system. Because it's quite possible that there may be a claim against RevCord. That's what I'm trying to figure out sitting here.
From what I understand of this is when RevCore was purchased, it was not, they didn't go through Digicom, the Motorola solution, you know, the provider, to provide you guys with the accurate information to make a determination, like we've been able to do with you here. I tried to Google and look up the RevCore system online to figure out what it was, and I couldn't find anything about it. So at the time, it was something that was thrown out, moved forward on without probably proper vetting, you know, a third-party discussion on it. Did it go to a couple layers of technical people to kind of discuss this? And I think what you're doing here now is probably helping you guys out and helping this whole process understand the different aspects of technology involved. With RevCore, I don't know enough about the background of it. When they put the specs out and said it would do this, this, and this, if one of those that they said it isn't doing, is that what you're going to hold them
Well, yeah, that's
liable on?
exactly it. I mean, if they promised that it was going to do A, B, C, and D, and it's not doing C, well, then we can go after them because they promised that it would do C. Now, if they promised it was going to do A, B, C, and D, and we said, okay, but then it needed to do E, and they didn't make a promise there, then obviously we can't go after them. I guess that's what I'm trying to parse out.
I would probably at this point try to keep, since the phone system is due for a renewal or upgrade, there's another part that's part of that, or
Well, you have
well, it's the recording system. You know,
Yes.
keep all of that together compatible. change it out at the same time if you can.
Next gen.
Which is what we're doing, I guess, which is where I'm trying to get to. And I understand, again, Ian, I absolutely hold them accountable, but with needing to upgrade the phone system to keep it compatible, in your words, Eric, follow the manufacturer's recommendations, to go with the Eventide, and that everything is integrated. That way we won't have this debacle again, and we're moving forward. I still think that we should still, again, I look at it as two different issues, to hold RevCord.
Well, and I guess
Absolutely.
that's my question to this group, because quite honestly, you know, if we're going to try to hold RevCord accountable, I'm going to need somebody with technical expertise to come to me and say, hey, they promised this and they didn't deliver. And I'm still not hearing one way or the other. Was this an issue with the purchase of RevCord? Was this just a bad decision by the purchasers, or was this RevCord not living up to their end of the bargain?
So like the commissioner, it is two different issues, but I will tell you that I will be your right hand on this, and I will help you, and we'll start researching this. I have not had time to go in. Okay. I was so focused on getting the answers about this system that I really didn't spend a lot of time on the RevCord, so I can't give you honest answers yet, but I think it is something we need to look into down the road here after this, and we need to come to a resolute on it.
So let me bring this back into light again, and this was brought up the other day, or maybe it was the first meeting that we had a month ago. And it was just hit on. It wasn't really a proposal, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the RevCord system that we have right now would work or function for Dolores County. And it wasn't really pushed out as a proposal, it was just that it would work for them. They do pay into the E911 system. So we still have a system that might work for them
Possibly.
and eliminate these legal frustrations or battles. Not that you're not, I mean.
No, I mean, to the
You know what
extent
I'm
we
saying?
can
I'm just
eliminate
saying-
legal battles, that's great. I'm
We
just trying to
eliminate
figure out
the
why the
legal
system
battle.
doesn't work.
We move the system to where it's gonna work. We've already purchased it. It works there. It helps them. They do pay into our E911 system. And again, they didn't necessarily put that out as a proposal, but it was mentioned. And it wasn't, but if that's a solution, I mean, I think we're here better to find solutions than to try and find a battle. If we upgrade our system to where everything is per the manufacturer's recommendations, everything works together, we're able to help Dolores County out to help with the RevCord system. And I don't remember 100% of the conversation because it was 3-4 years ago, 2019 when we had this, but I do remember looking at it, that it was the cheapest system.
Correct.
And the concerns was like, man, is this really what we want to do, guys?
And I guess the question that brings to mind is, why does it work for Dolores County and not us? Is that just,
It's a much smaller.
I think
It's
it's because of the
it's not a
channels.
911 center that has many interfaces.
And they don't
Correct.
have any interfaces hardly at all.
So it's working for a lesser, or the volume of calls communication center, a lot less than what we are functioning with right now. I think that eliminates a battle. Obviously, we have other things that you can be doing for us. that
Can I
are
ask a
probably
question
higher
on-
priority.
How much did you pay for the RevCore system? You
You know,
remember?
I looked at it with
I've got it
Fader the
right,
other day. I
gentlemen.
want to say it was like,
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
yeah. And we knew Commissioner Lindsay had to leave, so that's why we put you guys first. Thanks, Ken. I want to say off the top of my head, it was like $25,000, and that's a rough estimate. Don't quote
To me,
on
at
that
this
number.
point, with other things involved and the need, you got 3 years kind of out of this system. For 25,000, that's a drop in the hat.
So that's what I'm thinking is let's help our neighboring county. It'll work for them. We eliminate a battle that I'm not sure is worth fighting. Sometimes we need to pick our battles, and this one may not absolutely be one that we
Now, if it was
wanna pick.
150,000 or 200,000, which is what
Yeah, this is 100.
this is looking like it's gonna be,
It's 102 if my memory serves me
102.
correctly for the Eventide, and it's like 422 for the Vesta.
Vesta.
It's 421,000 and change for Vesta and 102,755 for Eventide.
So I guess what I'm looking at is for my concern is that all of the systems are compatible, they work together, and so that we're doing what we need to have as far, sorry, what we need to have communication-wise for everybody to function and work properly.
Again, that thing says Digicom on it, which is a Motorola Solutions, what is that? Provider. They
And-
own it.
And again, I thank you guys too, because we did not go through this last time. And I think we probably I'm the only one sitting here that was part of that decision, so it was probably a bad decision on our part.
You know, I have just an impression listening to this is just that we're realizing how complicated this is. I mean, it's a number of things. I might know maps. I don't know anything about radios, phone systems. I'm not a network guy. There's a lot of components, and no one person is going to know enough about all these pieces that have to go together to be able to make an informed decision. So, I mean, you're doing it, my impression is that you're doing it right now in having us each research it, vet it to the best of our ability, bring concerns about. So, which should be done before a proposal is actually brought to you. I mean, normally we would be doing all this, we would have time, and then a proposal would be signed off by whatever experts you can gather in related to the components of the system, and then you would have a proposal to then bring forward.
Then put an RFP out.
And then put an RFP out. So that's just my observation.
So we did it a little backward,
We did it a little backwards.
is what
but
you're saying,
it's
in a
going in the
nice
right
way?
direction.
So in 5 years, maybe we should switch it around, have
He's
this.
saying we're backward.
No, you were backward. I wasn't here.
Yeah,
I was
Well,
here
I
when we
wasn't
bought
here
the
either.
phone system 15 years ago.
There you
Whenever
go.
it was.
And that was revolutionary
I
at
get
that
it.
point.
See, it lasted for 15 years. You bought something that didn't last 2 or 3 years.
Actually, I was outvoted.
Let me add something real quick to it, is the Dispatch
We're gonna look back
Accountability
at the
Committee.
deal and see.
Yeah, go ahead.
Our Dispatch Accountability Committee, you know, is kind of reformatting. Vern Knuckles has done a few things different. Part of that, we've developed a separate group
Right.
that brings the technical side of stuff together, all the departments, everybody part of it, so we can stay on the same page. So when one department wants to do something, when somebody wants to do something, it comes together instead of this separate. So I think some of the developments and stuff that this group is doing will help, again, in the future, help you guys make some
I would
decisions.
think in the future, I would piggyback on that and say, the only suggestion I could make to make that even better would be to have better support from the different entities. In other words, it still shouldn't, as Doug stated, it can't just be one person that is making all the recommendations on the
Right.
technical side, and one person's not making all it needs to be made up of a group of the right people, whoever that is, but it needs to be represented from each entity that's involved, the county, the fire department, EMS, everybody should
And I
have.
think we're making that changes now to be able to get that involvement. It's
Okay.
the growing pains.
It is.
Do you have something, Gerald?
Well, the other day, when we were having this discussion last week, and I guess when you bought this system, before that, as I was understanding that, before that, they had not upgraded to Motorola, they were in that process
Correct.
when they bought this
No,
system?
Motorola's been upgraded since,
No, so this is just the logger. So the phone system is still part of Motorola, which is what we're upgrading the Vesta system.
that is correct.
So that's the 15-year-old system, but it didn't necessarily integrate like it was supposed to with the logger.
Wasn't there an upgrade, though, that was made since the RevCord system was purchased?
See, that's what I was getting at. See,
Yes.
There was, but I
what
don't
the-
actually
The
remember
history,
what
the
it
history
was.
we got was that there was an upgrade that was in the process of going to happen when they bought this system.
they bought the RevCore?
RevCore system.
Was it an upgrade on the
What-
console?
Did I
The
misunderstand?
radio
that?
console?
That's what I understood. I understood
That
that
was-
Understand it.
That was probably the upgrade to the 70, 7500s.
So, yeah, the 77.
These are the consoles that interface with the zone controller for the state DTR system and the radio interface. There was a major upgrade done a couple of years ago that each dispatch center was having to do. I don't know, I wasn't around during the time for this place, but I know it affected a lot of state 911 operations. Because voice recorders had to be upgraded before 7500s could be upgraded and vice versa. Now that you said that, it does,
And you are.
the consoles
you are
around the
correct.
state had to be
I
updated.
did say there was another upgrade, but I don't know what it was. True.
They did RevCore and then they did the radios. And we weren't really
So
part of that. so
before
we
that,
didn't-
was the recording working? Because that's, the way she talked, the way Lori
Yes.
talked is after this was upgraded, then the recording, she could only do 5
Instead of the 15.
instead of the 15. Well, was the 15 happening when RevCore was first put in or not? I guess that's the
don't know
question
the
I
answer
have.
to that.
I would say knowing the NICE system, believing that that's what was in place before RevCore. NICE is pretty compatible with Motorola and has been. They're still using it at Southern Ute right now. I would say there would, I don't know. I really don't know what their capabilities were with the NICE, but I'm assuming we had the NICE in the product and it worked just fine. And now everybody's doing this new one.
That's a
Because it's compatible with Motorola.
That's a critical question for the legal side of it. No doubt about it. I mean, that's what I was trying to get at. Again,
Yeah, see,
was this
that's
rev
what
cord-
concerned me, is if it was compatible whenever they first bought this thing, but then we upgraded, changed something, and then it's not compatible, we're not getting the recordings we should have after that.
Right.
Well, was that actually in your proposal when you bought the RevCore or not? I mean, if it's not,
I think
I can understand,
Right.
we're stuck with it.
Yeah, the RFP
That
usually says
we
that
made a
they're-
bad decision and go on.
Right.
If that was in the proposal to RevCore, then they should be held accountable for it.
Right.
If they said it would work and it doesn't work, then we should hold them accountable for it.
Agreed.
I don't think we should just pass them off.
But I think.
I mean,
I think Rick's
one
right.
way or
I
another.
think it
I
was
mean,
done,
I
yeah, think it
realize,
was
I'm not
backwards.
against upgrading the system and getting to where we need to be. But we also need to hold them responsible for if they didn't perform like they were supposed to. I don't,
You know, and the reason for that is it's clear that these companies will overpromise on everything. That includes E-Force. And,
they-
and under-deliver because you have the salespeople
trying to make
going
us up.
around making promises that,
But they can't legally do
solution-
that. You can't promise and then not deliver and get off scot-free. I mean, that's just not the way contracts work.
I understand that, but I'm gonna go back to the dollar figure. If it was $25,000, we've used it for 2 years, instead of fighting a battle that I won't say is not a battle, but is it really worth our time if we can pass it on to another user to where it functions properly for them? We move on about our way, and we now have a system that's compatible to the manufacturer's recommendations that will work together with everything that we have. I guess that's where I'm at. Again, $25,000 when you talk about
When you
this
talk about the big picture.
digital technology of everything that we have out there is, I'm not sure. I guess I would be the first one willing to say, hey, we made a bad decision, we didn't have enough information, and let's move
I
on.
think that's exactly what it comes down to. We made a decision based on information at the time, and it's, we have to live with that and move on.
but you're wanting us to make another decision about the
Well,
information that's available.
but we have lessons learned because you guys.
But we have,
Because this time
I'm
you
just
guys.
harassing you, it's
guys-
okay. I feel much better about it.
I think that's why you guys
at
are
least talking
setting
to you
higher
guys.
than
But
us.
I do have some questions about how this whole thing came down, because
There was another upgrade, though. I do remember that, and I'll have to look back on my emails. There was
think
another.
Rick's
And
right,
I'd
though. I
like to
think
know
it was-
really for sure what it did cost us, whether
I
it's
think you're right. I think it was a
25,000 or what it
backwards
was.
thing. I think they did it backwards, and I think that's what happened. I think they did it backwards, and that's what caused all this to begin with.
Gotcha.
And I wasn't part of that decision or even advice, but I do remember the conversations.
The radios. Okay. All right. Well, I have no other question. Commissioner Lindsay, obviously, I think he asked everything that he had. Commissioner Copenhaver.
I would like to know how much we actually did pay for the system.
And we can look that up. We can have Phaedra, but I know roughly it was about $25,000. Now, what the upgrade was, I can't answer that yet, but we can actually look that up.
My rough recollection was like 21,000 is what we paid for the Rev Corps. What I recall
Yeah,
from
it
the,
was,
Yeah, that's,
right, and that would be close to my 25,000 of what I'm recalling.
And 21,000 is roughly the same amount of cost for a server, and you usually get about 3 to 5 years out of servers. So it's within.
unless you push them like I do and make 10 or 12.
Now, one thing that I don't know if it was mentioned, that when you switch over from RevCore to the new Eventide, if there's no data backup, this system is going to be need to be kept online and available for 3 years, because all those recordings that are on it right now need to be accessible by 3 years. So you won't be able to get rid of that system unless you have a valid way of having that data to provide for criminal, any of those recordings, 911 calls or everything must be maintained.
Question to ask the E911 board and how that's going to be handled, because that is true.
I think when I visited with Shay, they're planning on wanting to keep that system online, just in the corner, to recall current data off of it for another 3 years.
For 3 years?
I have to do the same thing, only I have to keep it for a lifetime if there's any kind of certain felonies involved.
So if you're thinking about handing it off to Dolores County,
Well, and again,
Or somebody?
they didn't make that proposal. So I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. It's just part of the conversation that we're having today. It was alluded to, but nobody made that proposal.
And it's possible Eventide might be able to transfer it. I know what it is, the metadata that's involved, and it's possible it might be able to just be.
So those are questions as we move forward if we decide to make that decision tomorrow. But I have that written down. I just put it as a data backup for 3 years? Question mark? Okay.
3 years
Okay.
is what the legal data
Requirement. for-
requirement is.
Retention
Retention.
Do you know what that is?
Only has to do with if they get a lawsuit or something, if you ever go back and pull the records.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. I'll have Phaedra pull it up. She'll be able to go back and tell us exactly what it was.
If it's not any more money than that, it's not that big a deal.
I know, I remember the 25,000, but it sounds like 3,000 of it was for the implementation of the software.
Yeah,
So it was 21,000.
it's
That's what it was.
probably, I was thinking it was 200,000 or something, and I was thinking this, and we need to hold them responsible, but if it's not, yeah, it may not be worth the legal hassle.
Okay,
But it concerns me. It
Come forward,
concerns me that
Dustin.
the city of Cortez and this whole deal. Yeah. Go on.
all right, Dustin. You want to talk to us about a freezer. Are we talking about a freezer or cooler?
The walk-in freezer and the walk-in cooler at the sheriff's department for the detention center.
Okay.
So the cooler, the evaporator's leaking inside.
Yep.
And we've been having to add refrigerant. And so, and then on the freezer side of it, the compressor's locked up. So it's down, and they've been currently using the one out at the fairgrounds and going back and forth. So I did send it out to 3 people, and the Urban Country Services is the cheapest.
Okay, so you just heard the conversation that we just had. Is that
Yeah.
the cheapest, or are we
Well-
looking at the best? Because we do not have to accept
Yeah,
the cheapest bid, and you can see what it just did to us.
yeah.
So, do we have the best bid?
I'm not for sure. I've never done any business with him or CBW either. So it may be worth a shot, and maybe.
So have you
it might
checked
be
any
good.
recommendations on them? Have you called? Because now it just puts a little bit more trepidation on us, or at
Yeah.
least me, to say, hey, wait a minute, we don't necessarily always have to take by far the lowest bid to get,
Yeah,
and it doesn't mean that they're not the best.
yeah.
So,
I spoke with him a little bit. I believe he's from Alaska. He's living in Hesperus and has done refrigeration for 25 years, he said. Working out of his garage, so his overhead's low. That's some of his better price. I was referred the number through Travis. That's the only way I've even found him. So I can try and find some.
well, here again,
references.
now we're faced with something that I know that it sounds like it's out of service, and we're using a cooler at it's still working somewhat,
The cooler's working.
but then we have the share center freezer that we're using at the fairgrounds.
Yeah,
It's out of service.
yeah.
It's, the freezer's totally out of
The freezer's clear
service.
out of service, yes.
What was the difference? I can pull it back up too. Do you have, what is the difference between the 3 bids that you have? They were all like under $38,000, right?
Yeah, the CBW was 33,250.
Slower?
Subcooled was 31,250, and then 25,500 from Urban Country Services.
Okay, what was CBW?
33,250 total.
Century was 25,500
Yeah, Urban Country.
or country? And you're recommending CBW?
I've never done any work with CBW either, so I'm not. The only person that we've dealt with is Subcooled.
Which
for-
is right in the middle?
Yeah. Well, he's the cheaper of the, well, he's middle of the road. How about that?
I'm, Sheriff, come on down, I got a question for you too.
Well, I haven't seen these yet, so I don't know. I'd like to be able to sit down with Dustin and find out where these, what these companies are, and do some checking to see.
Perfect.
The biggest thing is gonna have to be, can it be serviced if we have a problem?
Perfect, which is exactly what I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
We'll put this off until next Monday, and we'll bring it forward after you guys have had the time to do what the presenters in front of you just did for us.
Okay.
Because here again, I don't want to get stuck
I don't either.
in 2 years doing this again. It's not
Yeah.
always the cheapest price, is not always the best for our community.
Well, I learned a lesson over the washing machines and whatnot in the jail. We just won't do that industrial cost anymore. It just doesn't seem to work, and it costs forever I mean, a lot of money for them to come down out of Denver to do repairs, and then they're back and forth. And the bill is just ridiculous, so we're done with that. So I'd really like to find out more about these companies, their equipment, and who's gonna
Well,
service
then you
them.
have a week,
Yep,
is,
Yeah, that'll
if
work.
that's long enough.
Yeah.
okay,
And then come back with your recommendation. Right now, we have the three. I did look at the budget as far as the capital expenditures. We do have, and I think, Dustin, you probably talked to Fader a little bit, we can take up to, out of the capital 3150 account, and we've got 37.5 that we can use in there for that. So I think we have enough money, we can move it out of that 3150 account to take care of it, but I really want to make sure that we make the best decision and not go with the lowest bid, and then 2 weeks later, you're in here mad at us.
yep, thanks. I
Okay.
appreciate it.
So make sure you add that to next week's agenda too, if that's okay with you, Commissioner. I should make sure
No,
we have.
I agree, because there's some, these guys are doing some work for different people around.
Check some references and make sure that we're getting the very best that we want.
Okay. Thank you.
And the sheriff freezer at the fairgrounds is okay now?
As far as I know, there's been no more problems.
Okay,
I think there's a better communication
Okay.
going on now.
all right.
No more commodities out of the detention budget, so.
Okay, all right, very good.
All right, thank you.
All right, well, being that that's it, we'll see you guys next Monday.
All right, thank you.
Anything to offer? Nope? Okay, all right. All right, well, thank you all. And that brings us to the end of our agenda. That's all that we had, were just those two items. So this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.